Hello everyone, it's Zháne. I became a college student, business owner, and published author all by age 18, and today I'm doing another video responding to one of your comments. So this is actually in response to a comment by Lexi, which I mentioned in a different video, where I answered another one of her questions. But this time she wanted to know, how did I learn how to write, especially because a lot of people struggle going through the school system on how to write. I have a lot to say about this, and some of it might not be the direction that you're thinking I was going in answering it, but it was a lot that culminated into me having my writing ability now. So the very first thing I want to say is I do not write the way that I was taught to write in school at all. My writing style has nothing to do with how they taught in school. And also, this is me being in an accelerated gifted program. I still don't write anything like how my teachers wanted me to write, unless I did have a couple of teachers who were very, very prolific writers themselves, and they let me kind of have my own writing voice, and we chatted, and they were great. But otherwise, I'm talking about teachers that are just teaching because, listen, this is on the lesson plan, and this is what we're learning today. My writing style is nothing like that. So you specifically mentioning that, hey, people who go through the school system, like, this is hard. I completely understand that. This is the same reason why I have never taken a writing class beyond the classes that I am mandatory to take throughout all my years of school. Even in college, I have not taken a writing class. No. The issue that I ran into, and I'm sure you guys are also running into this issue just based on the way she asked the question, is that writing in school doesn't have any nuance. You have a rubric and there's no nuance in developing your own voice, playing with different writing styles, mixing it up. There's none of that. You don't get to do that. And even in academic writing, now that I'm, in college and I have done research, I have done papers, I've done this, I've done that. Even in academic writing, you can have your own voice. However, they don't teach you that in school. So what are you supposed to do? So this is my experience. I mentioned in a bunch of my other videos that I've always creatively written something. I've always carried journals. I've always had notebooks. I'll just get a piece of paper and write something. I also love to draw, which I think is important to mention. I loved expressing myself creatively, but one of the most fun things for me to do with my writing and with my art was to try new things. I have an art style, like a drawing style, my own drawing style. And I, back then, had my writing style. But I never just did the same thing all the time. It's like, hey, in school we read poems. Let me try poetry. Hey, there's this cool new video game. I love the art style. Let me try to draw in that art style. Let me try to do this. Let me try to do that. Basically, I was mixing my media. I was creating variation in the way that I was expressing myself. And this is what I credit my now writing style to. So my writing style way long ago, years ago, looks completely like a different person wrote it if I were to write now. Completely different. Voice is different. Tone is different. The way I address people is different. Unrecognizable, okay? A lot of what I tried and experimented with my writing, and a lot of what I emulated, because at first when you first learn about something new in arts, I'm going to include writing in arts, you have to see it first. You can create your own things, but you have to have some kind of reference. Like, if you've never drawn anything before, and then I told you, draw a self-portrait without a reference, go. Even if I gave you a reference, you would struggle because you've never done it before. So it's the same thing. And school does this, which is the critique that I have. Here, you've never written an argumentative essay before. Write it. And a lot of times it's like, well, as a class, we haven't read like 100 argumentative. We don't really know what this looks like. We can't build upon this. We don't know. So a lot of my skills as a writer come from me being a bookworm because I was always reading. I was reading. Basically, it gives me more data to process to then put in a page. If you've never seen, it's just a random character. Let's say you've never seen Pikachu, just a random character, and then I tell you to draw Pikachu, you will never be able to make an accurate picture of that because you've never seen it. It's the same with writing. I wrote a long form book because I was always reading long form books. And my book is 250 pages long. Guess how long the books were that I was usually reading? About 250 pages. Even as I got older, there's just, my favorite genres are young adult and middle grade novels. So a lot of them are about this long, unless it's like Harry Potter. But yeah, that's what I was exposed to. That's what I loved reading in my free time. So I've got all this data that's turning, and I'm getting more of it, and then I can produce my own thing over here. That is the same principle that I've carried throughout writing forever, and it has worked out for me. So my very, 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 very first thing I'll ever say to anyone who wants to write a book, who wants to write anything, is to read a lot. For example, my book features an unreliable narrator, and I will not spoil who the unreliable narrator is. You'll have to figure it out when you read it. But I got that idea because in school, we read The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, in which he is an unreliable narrator. I had never heard of that before. It was just a new concept, and I loved that story. I still love that story. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, you can't even trust what they're saying. It wasn't even something that was in my brain. So had I not been exposed to that, I wouldn't have been able to write it because I didn't know what it was. So after we read that book in class, and this was actually with one of those really, really cool English teachers that I was saying that did let me express myself and was a wonderful writer herself. After we read that, I started looking at stories and movies and art that had unreliable narrators. And I loved it. And so I kept consuming content that was like unreliable narrator. And then it put the idea in my head, how could I apply this to my own story, to my own characters, right? And so that's what I did. And I think I executed it very well in my book. But also, I have to say this. Obviously, a big part of writing is actually practicing writing. I don't think that... Okay, for example, I think that if I were to write a book right now, let's just say that I could write a book in a day. I think that book would be leaps and bounds better than my first book because the first book was... I spent 4 or 5 years writing. So I'm 4 or 5 years more experienced. But I really do think what school misses is that reading portion. It's not congruent. I went to school for, I think all the way through middle school, we had like required summer readings and stuff. But the issue was that the summer readings were fiction, which is not bad on its own, but the summer readings were fiction books. And then when we got to school, we were doing argumentative essays. They're not comparable. They've got different tone, art, like writing style. It's not congruent is what I'm trying to say. So read. Number one is read more. And read in the genre that you would like to produce. And then also a little bit of a branch off of that, even if you read in a genre that's not what you want to produce, find something that incorporates an element of something you want to emulate. Like my book is nothing like The Telltale Heart. However, I started reading more stories that had the unreliable narrator. No matter if they're a fantasy, historical, this, that, they just needed to have that thing that I wanted to emulate so that I started knowing what it looked like. It's similar to learning a language, which I'm just recently knowing because I'm learning Chinese. You have to be exposed to it before you can formulate words or formulate an art piece, or formulate a book, or whatever you want to write. And then beyond that, I think, so I went through a long period where I stopped reading a lot because writing was taking up my mental capacity. And I'm sure that when I get into the throes of me writing the main project that I'm working on right now, I will get into bouts where I stop reading because my brain just is like, I only have so much brain power. And if writing takes up all of it, then I have no space for reading. I think the last thing would just be to be self-aware that you're always going to be improving. And what I mean by that is you need to have a system of, you need to somehow prevent over editing. A lot of people, especially people new to writing, will write something and then delete it. And then write something and delete it. It's like, oh, this isn't good enough, so I got to delete it. No. Whatever, you need to come up with a system that stops that from happening. Like for me, I will just write a first draft and not edit it and just write it. And compared to the final, that's terrible writing. like if I were to release the first draft, or like I have 2 first drafts right now that I'm working on. If I were to release those 2 first drafts right now, you'd be like, what is she talking about? This is terrible. Well, it might not be. I'm experienced writing now, so my draft might still pass. Like I might still get an A on like a paper. I've done a couple final papers same day and not had time to edit and still like got an A on it. So it might pass, but I'm saying relative to how I know I can write. But that prevents me from over editing. It prevents me from being like, oh, this is bad. Because every time you write, you get better. So if I write a chapter, let's say I wrote a chapter last week passes, I take a week off, and then I come back, 2 weeks later, I might read that and think it's terrible because I've then become more experienced by writing it. So it's also a balancing game. You have to be okay with that. But really, my main thing is to read in what you want to create. If you think that you're bad at, okay, I'll say like research papers. If you're bad at research papers, which a lot of people say like, oh, like they struggle with research papers. I get a lot of a lot of students that I tutor coming in for papers for me to edit. You, in that kind of situation, I would find things that have elements of what you want to emulate. My research papers, and this is not conventional, my research papers, let me clarify. When I say research, I'm not talking about like a trial, like a clinical trial or like an experiment. I'm talking about like a literature review, that kind of research. Movie review, film review, that kind of thing. Literature review, those are fun. They still carry my writer's voice. I still might address the audience. I still might have something that I really love to do, and I forgot the literary term for this. Please tell me if you know what I'm talking about. I love to have callbacks. So I might start, I had to do a film paper for my Chinese film class this past semester. And one of my first opening lines was something like, it was referencing how instead of accepting that something is wrong, usually people will lie to protect themselves. And then like at the end of the paper, I made a comparison that instead of accepting that something is wrong, society lied to protect itself. And it just repeats like throughout the paper. It's not the same line that repeats, but it's the same motif. That's what I was looking for. Motif. I love motifs. So I use them. I use them in my fiction writing. I use them in my research papers. I use them in this. I use them in that. You can still, if you read the paper, I would assume that you would know that it was me if you were familiar with my writing. Those kinds of things. And you only get that once you start branching out, because school is only going to give you, okay, research papers look like this. A literature review looks like that. This looks like this. And it's really not like that. That I feel like it defeats the whole purpose of writing. Yeah, you just got to expose yourself to more things. I became a great writer because I was such a prolific reader. That's why. I really do attribute that. I feel like if I didn't read, I wouldn't be able to write at this level. And this might be a weird way to back it up, but when I was smaller and I drew, I taught myself how to draw. I've never taken any like drawing classes or anything, which I actually would like to, but I haven't. And because I'm not so exposed to like drawing videos or other people drawing in front of me, just seeing the process of drawing, my drawing skills are pretty good, but they've plateaued. I mean, I think that I would need to actually go out and take a class in order to improve. Because how do you know where to ask your questions if you don't even know about the subject? How do you know how to become a better writer if you don't even know what you're bad at? Like, that's kind of what I'm showing. My writing is continuously, my writing ability is continuously growing. And my art ability went up, and then it's just kind of flatlined. So really, I would just say read more. But I'm so happy you asked that question. I don't get a lot of people that ask me that, but that's something I always want to talk about. And I always encourage people in my writing club, kids who are like, I want to, oh my gosh, it's so sweet. They'll be like, I want to grow up and publish a book like you. It's so sweet. I tell them to read more. Just read, and read some more. But yeah, that is it. That's like, I think that's the most succinct video I've made. Just, I had that answer ready. Yeah, so read more, expose yourself to different writing styles, different prose, different authors, different things. And it doesn't always have to be books. You can watch movies and gather that. You can see how video games, oh my goodness, I should have mentioned that. Video games are a great way to learn how to write. If you love games, video games are a great way to learn how to write because they teach you pacing. RPG games, like those are like role-playing games where there's a bunch of story. So there's a bunch of text or dialogue. I mean, it could be dialogue, but I just happen to play ones that have a bunch of like text. They're great because you get to, okay, this is the story. This is how we're going. This is it. And it's also a visual component because if you're playing a game, there is a visual component to it. I can't believe I didn't think about that in the beginning. But yeah, it could be any art. And then you find what you like and you emulate it until you don't have to emulate it anymore. Eventually, you're not emulating anything. It's just you. And then things that you don't like, I've got things I don't like. I do not like second person books. I just, it bothers me. It's like, and you are doing it, like, ugh, no. I don't, for some reason, I just don't like them. So you'll never catch me writing a second person book. I might use the second person because I've been exposed to it, but I'm never gonna probably write a whole book like that. You're probably not gonna catch me write a huge book or a huge series like to the length of Harry Potter because Harry Potter was the only series that I read that was like that. I've never read another huge like series spanning story. So I'm probably not going to be able to create that very well. My books will probably be smaller. So see, it's just exposing yourself and then trying something out. And then ultimately you will succeed and you will fail. And I always like to see my writings as a mix of both, not just like, oh, this is a whole failure, oh, this is a whole success. I love my book that came out. I love my debut book. There are some things that I will do differently in my next novel because I've learned from the first book. Like, I will be outlining every single next book that I make because I wasted so much time not outlining. So that's it. I would just say read more and read intentionally. Know what you're reading. Read for the benefit of your writing. Write, obviously. Practice writing. And then reflect. And you'll improve. And that's it. I don't think that school teaches how to write how I write. I just don't. You don't have, it doesn't give you the tools to do so. At least where I'm from. where I in school where I'm from, they don't teach you that. So that's my advice. So as always, I hope you guys have a great day. And really quickly before we go, reminder that my book, or this version of this book, will not be sold for much longer because there will be a second version of the same book coming out with an updated cover, an updated bio for me. And then when that next version comes out, you'll not be able to get the original version. So if you want to have the original version and have bragging rights that you have the original version, you need to get them quickly. I do have some stock left, so you can get them on my website. I can sign them, or you can stop me. I can still sign them if you catch me in the wild. But yeah, if that's something you're interested in, make sure you go grab it. But otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.